I was accused of a federal crime by a woman in a wrinkled vest with fake badges and a Wi-Fi signal. She claimed my horses were contaminating government property. She said my pond on my own land belonged to the HOA. Then she live-streamed the cops showing up at my gate and told my neighbors I was harboring illegal federal animals, all because I let 5 horses take a swim. That was the moment my life, my ranch, my name, my peace was dragged into a full-blown circus. The ringmaster? A clipboard-carrying Karen named Sharon Buckley. She faked inspections. She stole my mail. She planted cameras in my bushes and staged evidence like it was a Netflix crime doc. And the worst part? People believed her. My friends stopped calling. Buyers pulled out. I watched my reputation burn while Sharon played the victim on camera. But I had one thing she didn't. The truth. And a drone. This is the story of how I lost everything and took it all back with one video. Trust me, you've never seen an HOA meltdown like this. Let's go back to the beginning. Before the screaming, before the cops, before the fake documents. When I still thought I was safe on my own land, before all the insanity, before the cops, the lawsuits, the live-streamed accusations of harboring federal livestock. Life was peaceful. I'm talking birds, song in the morning, horses in the pond, coffee on the porch, kind of peaceful. Out here in Meadowbrook, Texas, things moved slow. We liked it that way. My ranch, been in the Thompson family for 3 generations. That pond, my granddad dug it himself with a backhoe and a dream back in '63. Every morning, I'd lead my horses, Thunder, Whisper, Storm, and the 2 Border Patrol horses I was boarding, Ranger and Scout, down to the water for their daily swim. It was our routine, like church but with hooves and splashing. The sun would hit the pond just right, making the water sparkle like a bucket of diamonds spilled across the surface. I'd lean on the old fence post, sip my coffee, and watch them play. Some people need yoga. I just needed 5 happy horses and a clean pond. Neighbors would wave as they drove by. Emily Carter from across the way always said it made her day, seeing the horses in the water like that. It felt like the kind of life folks moved to the country for. No HOA drama, no politics, just fresh air, honest work, and the sound of hooves on soft grass. I didn't know then that every peaceful moment was being watched. That behind the smiles and waves, someone had already decided that pond didn't belong to me anymore. That someone had a clipboard and a plan. But hey, before we dive headfirst into HOA hell, do me a favor. If you've ever had a crazy neighbor or just love seeing justice served Texas style, smash that like button, drop your worst HOA story in the comments, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what comes next. Because trust me, it gets wild. What I didn't know that morning, watching the ripples on that pond, was that someone else was watching too. And she didn't see peace. She saw power. Coming up next, the day Sharon Buckley stepped onto my land, armed with Wi-Fi, fake authority, and enough crazy to fill a courtroom. You ever met someone who walks around like they've got a badge, but it's just a laminated name tag they made at Office Depot? That's Sharon Buckley, president of the Meadowbrook HOA. Self-appointed queen of absolutely nothing that belongs to her. She strutted across my fence line that morning like she was storming the beaches of Normandy. Cold khaki vest with patches that said things like HOA Patrol and Certified Neighborhood Watch. Clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, already recording because why just be wrong when you can be loud and wrong on Facebook Live? This is community property, she barked, pointing at my pond like she was claiming it for the British Empire. You're contaminating shared water resources with livestock. Lady, they're horses, not radioactive cows. I tried to stay calm. I pointed to the old cedar fence my grandfather put up, showed her the markers, even offered to pull out the property deed. She ignored all of it. Said, and I quote, "How to control this HOA and everything under the sky. Look, I've dealt with stubborn folks before. This is Texas." But Sharon had the confidence of a toddler in a Batman cape, And the paperwork to match, none. She called the police. Not once, not twice, 3 times that week. Claimed I was running an unlicensed horse facility. He said the pond was toxic. Told neighbors I was harboring government animals. What's next? That I trained my horses to spy on her HOA meeting? And here's the part that really stung. People started to believe her. I'd wave at folks driving by, and they'd look away. Some even crossed the street like I had a warrant out. That's when I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about control. Sharon didn't care about water quality or zoning laws. She cared about power, the illusion of it. And she was willing to lie, steal, and live stream her way through anything to get it. You know that saying, give someone a little power and they'll show you who they really are? Well, give them a clipboard and HOA letterhead. And some people turn into Napoleon with Wi-Fi. I thought that was the worst of it. But then she brought back up. So there I was, standing on my own land, watching 5 happy horses splash around like kids at summer camp, when Sharon Buckley declared them a national threat. I wish I was kidding. According to Sharon's latest live stream, which by the way had more filters than facts, I wasn't just disturbing the community. I was now allegedly horses contaminating shared water resources. Horses illegally boarding government animals. Horses and possibly endangering public safety with aggressive livestock. The most aggressive thing Thunder did that morning was fart in the pond. 20 minutes later, I saw the flashing lights. Sheriff Tom Harrove. Good guy, been to my cookouts. Hell, he helped name Storm when she was born. He steps out of the cruiser, tips his hat, gives me that look. You know the one that says, I'm here 'cause I have to be, not 'cause I believe any of this. Sharon ran up before he could say a word, waving her clipboard like she was swearing him in. Officer, these animals are clearly federal property being abused and used without authorization. Tom blinked at her, looked at me, looked at the horses, who were literally just playing in the water. Wade, you boarding Border Patrol horses again? I nodded. Showed him the permits I keep in the barn office, just like always. Tom sighed, handed the clipboard back like it was radioactive, and said, Ma'am, this is private property. There's no violation here. That should have been the end of it. But with Sharon, logic is just the thing she ignores before doubling down. The next morning, every mailbox in the neighborhood got hit with a community health emergency alert. You'd think the CDC had shown up. It had big red letters, legal-sounding terms, and a whole section about contaminated livestock compromising public welfare, all based on her own made-up report. She even managed to twist the language from my livestock permit to make it sound like I was running some illegal farm. I remember standing there, holding that ridiculous notice, thinking, how did a morning swim turn into a federal indictment? I started losing sleep. People whispered. My phone rang less. I lost a deal with a cattle buyer I'd worked with for years. All because one woman decided the truth was less entertaining than the story she wanted to tell. And the worst part? The horses didn't understand a damn thing. They were still just being horses. Splashing, eating, napping under the oaks. Meanwhile, I was fighting for my name, my land, and the right to let animals be animals. But Sharon wasn't done. Because when fake letters didn't work, she brought in a fake inspector. I thought I'd seen it all. Live streams, flyers, accusations of biological warfare. But nothing prepared me for the moment Sharon Buckley showed up. With her own environmental inspector. Let me paint the picture. This guy rolls up in a dented Corolla. He's wearing a wrinkled button-down 2 sizes too big and sunglasses that look like he won them at a carnival. He's holding a clipboard with no paper on it. No badge, no ID, no clue. Sharon announces him proudly like she's introducing the president. This is the HOA's Certified Environmental Enforcement Officer. Certified by who? The internet? He starts walking around my yard, tapping the fence like he's checking for ghosts. He scoops water from the pond into a red Solo cup, takes soil samples using a plastic spoon, all while Sharon narrates like she's filming CSI Texas Ranch Edition. As you can see, she says to her phone, the defendant is continuing operations in direct violation of community health standards. The defendant being me, on my own land, where my biggest crime that day was wearing socks that didn't match. I stood on my porch, watching this circus unfold, holding a mug of lukewarm coffee and thinking, is this what HOA dues pay for now? Community theater? Then it got worse. The inspector, who looked like he couldn't pass a high school biology class, starts posing with the water samples, holding them up to the light like he's auditioning for a medical drama. And that's when I heard it, clear as day. Sharon leans over and whispers, make sure you say the contamination levels are high, got it? You ever feel the blood drain from your face, then boil back in? That was me. I realized she wasn't just annoying. She was staging a crime. On camera. On my land. Emily, my neighbor and part-time sniper of BS, was watching from across the fence. She leans in and yells, hey Sharon, what's next? Gonna carbon date the dirt? Sharon ignored her, of course, but her expert suddenly looked real nervous. He backed away from the pond, nearly tripped over a hose, and quietly asked Sharon, what exactly are we testing again? Sir, you're holding a spoon and a Solo cup. You tell me. I wish I could say that was the end. But the next morning I got a call from Animal Welfare Services. Sharon had filed a formal complaint alleging I was forcing horses to swim in chemically contaminated water. The inspector they sent, Janet, tough as nails, real credentials, took one look at my herd, smiled, and said, these are some of the healthiest animals I've seen all year. But even with her report clearing me, I still got slapped with a $200 0 fine for incomplete permit documentation. Why? Because someone stole the renewal letter from my mailbox, and I had a pretty good idea who. I wasn't just being harassed. I was being set up. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about fences, or water, or horses anymore. This was personal. And Sharon? She was just getting warmed up. So if she wanted a show, fine. I had cameras, I had receipts. But I had one secret weapon she wasn't ready for. They say reputation is everything. And in a small Texas town like mine, it really is. You help fix fences during a storm, people remember. You lend someone your truck, they bring it back with gas and pie. Your name means something. But ever since Sharon's circus rolled into my front yard, complete with fake inspectors, live stream lies, and biological warfare accusations, my name started to rot. Not from anything I did, but from what people were told. One morning I walked into the feed store, same place I've bought hay from for 10 years. And the kid behind the counter said, "Hey, you're the horse guy, right? The one under investigation?" I laughed, thought he was joking. He wasn't. A few days later I got a call from a longtime cattle buyer. He was scheduled to purchase half my herd. "Sorry, Wade," he said. "There's just too much heat on your name right now." And just like that, tens of thousands of dollars gone. Because Sharon Buckley couldn't stand seeing horses in a pond she didn't own. I started noticing things. Neighbors crossing the street. Parents whispering as they walked their kids past my fence. Emily told me there were rumors that I was under federal surveillance. That I'd been caught trafficking animals. That I was running a rogue ranch off government land. All I was running was low on patience and sweet feet. I stopped sleeping. I stopped smiling. I stopped letting my horses in the pond, not because I believed Sharon, but because I didn't want to give her another photo to twist. And one night, sitting on the porch with a cup of cold coffee, I actually thought about selling it all. Backing up. disappearing somewhere so remote that the nearest HOA was 3 counties over. And that's when I saw it. A tiny red blinking light in the bushes near the pond. One of Sharon's cameras, watching me, in my lowest moment. And something in me snapped. I wasn't just fighting for land anymore. I was fighting for truth. And for family. For every honest person who's ever been targeted by a bully with a clipboard and a Facebook account. So I dusted off my old drone, charged the batteries, and waited for nightfall. If Sharon wanted to play surveillance games, she was about to find out what real documentation looks like. I bought that drone last year to check fence lines out near the ridge. Never thought I'd be using it for a recon mission on my own property. Against a woman who thought she was the FBI, EPA, and Judge Judy, all rolled into one. But when you find a blinking red light in your bushes, it's time to fight fire with HD footage. So I waited. First night, nothing. Second night, same. But night 3? Around 2:00 IEM, my motion sensor tripped. I launched the drone, flew it over the back pasture, and there she was, Sharon Buckley. Dressed like a knockoff ninja, tiptoeing through the dew like she was infiltrating a military base. She was carrying a flashlight, a Ziploc bag, and what looked like a selfie stick? The drone caught everything. Sharon trespassing, rifling through bushes, taking samples from the pond and talking to her phone like she was filming a National Geographic expose. "Look at the discoloration," she whispered, then stirred up mud with a stick to make the water look dirty. She even dumped in what looked like food coloring to fake an oil slick. I watched from the screen on my porch, barefoot, jaw clenched. My horses slept peacefully nearby, unaware that this woman was framing them for environmental terrorism. And that's when she slipped. No, really, she literally slipped. Fell straight into the shallow end, splashed up like a surprised cat, and started cussing so loud my drone mic caught every word. But the real gold? She looked straight into her camera and said, "Let's make it look worse tomorrow. I'll say he threatened me. That'll push the board to act." And there it was. Not just slander, not just harassment, intent to manipulate public perception for personal gain. The next morning, I sent the footage to Emily. She helped me cut it, subtitle it, and package it up like a courtroom presentation. We sent it to the HOA board. We sent it to the sheriff. We even uploaded a private link to YouTube with the title, "Sharon Buckley, the HOA Queen of Crime." Within 24 hours, my phone started ringing. HOA board members who hadn't returned my calls in weeks were now apologizing. Neighbors were texting, "Hey, is that really her on the drone?" And Tom, our local sheriff? He called and said, "Wade, you got her." But nothing was sweeter than the next HOA meeting. Because Sharon didn't know the video had gone viral. And she was about to walk into the biggest plot twist of her clipboard-carrying career. I showed up to the next HOA meeting in a clean shirt and dirty boots. Sharon? She came in like she was starring in a courtroom drama. Clipboard in hand, lipstick just slightly crooked. And confidence? Through the roof. She had no idea what was coming. She opened the meeting with fireworks. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "I have proof that Wade Thompson is harboring federal property, violating environmental law, and threatening community safety." She waved a fake Border Patrol letter like it was the Constitution. "This is the end of the lies," she said. Oh, she was so close to being right. I stood up, looked her in the eye, and said calmly, "You're absolutely right, Sharon. The lies do end tonight." That's when Emily, sitting at the laptop, hit play. On the big screen behind us. Sharon sneaking through my property at night, stirring mud in the pond, dumping dye into the water, coaching her fake inspector to lie. The gasps in the room were so loud even thunder back home probably heard them. One guy in the back actually said, "Holy crap, that's her?" And when the audio played, her voice sang, "I'll say he threatened me," Her clipboard slipped right out of her hand and hit the floor with a clap. First time in months Sharon didn't have a comeback. And that's when Dana Monroe walked in. Dana, Border Patrol agent, all business, holding a folder full of receipts. Wade Thompson, she told the room, has been legally authorized to board our horses under full federal permission. Anyone claiming otherwise is either misinformed or committing a federal offense. She turned and looked directly at Sharon when she said that last part. The room went silent. Sharon turned red, then pale, then red again. She muttered something about editing and deepfakes. But no one was buying it. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt the tide turn. Neighbors started clapping. Emily cracked a big grin. And me? I just exhaled, the kind of breath you don't even realize you've been holding for months. Someone handed Sharon her clipboard back. She grabbed it like a drowning woman grabs a life preserver. But that thing couldn't save her now. The board voted unanimously to suspend her HOA powers pending legal investigation. Sharon stormed out of the meeting, muttering something about conspiracies and vendettas. But the only thing chasing her now was the truth. That night I sat by the pond, watching the water finally ripple in peace. But the fight wasn't over. Because after all the lies, fines, false reports, and drone footage, there was still justice to be served. After the HOA meeting, after the drone footage dropped, after the truth sucker punched Sharon's little empire into pieces, I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd get to rest. But the story didn't stop at the fence line. Over the next few weeks, neighbors I hadn't spoken to in months started showing up at my door. "I'm sorry, Wade," they'd say. "We didn't know. We should have asked. We should have trusted you." The Martinez family invited me over for dinner. Mrs. Peterson brought me cookies and told me her late husband would have loved to see Sharon get what was coming. Emily called it a truth and reconciliation tour. I called it hope. Because that's the thing about lies. They spread fast. But the truth? When it shows up, clean, clear, undeniable, it heals. Sharon was eventually charged with multiple counts. Mail theft, harassment, forging documents, filing false reports. She got probation, community service, fines. But the real sentence? She lost her power, her image, her control. Meanwhile, my ranch, it came back to life. We threw the biggest BBQ this town had seen in years. Dana from Border Patrol showed up with her kids. Thunder and Whisper played in the pond like nothing had ever happened. And I stood there, cold beer in hand, boots in the dirt, watching my people laugh again. That's when I realized this fight was never just about me. It was about every neighbor too scared to speak up. Every homeowner fined for wildflowers. Every decent person steamrolled by a petty tyrant with too much time and not enough conscience. So Emily and I created something new. A guide, a platform, a playbook for standing up to HOA abuse. We called it "The Clipboard Doesn't Make You King." And folks started reaching out from all over the country. "Hey Wade, we've got a Sharon in our neighborhood too. How'd you film her without getting sued? Can we use your drone video as an example?" Turns out, I had gone from rancher to reluctant revolution leader. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stand your ground. With kindness, evidence, and a good Wi-Fi connection. If this story hit home, if you've ever been bullied by a clipboard, steamrolled by fake authority, or just needed to know someone out there fought back and won, hit that like button, drop your HOA horror story in the comments, and subscribe for more true tales of justice, grit, and a little bit of Texas dirt. This was my story, but maybe now it can be yours too. Because at the end of the day, Sharon forgot one thing. Truth floats, lies sink, and in my pond, only the horses swim free.